What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday afternoon edition. It's always the afternoon on our editions of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Sorry we were not here yesterday for a 4-gamer. The GPPs were okay, but took my kids to the zoo. So tried to leave bacon with the monkeys, but they threw him out. Joining me as always, we have a 9-game slate, so Cliffy. What's going on?
Not a whole lot, man. Just watching a little bit of that Sabres game. Another one of those things, like, talk about it all the time. There are certain games, certain periods where the Sabres look like they can play with absolutely anybody in the league. They dominated that first against Calgary. See how the next two periods go. Yeah, kind of an interesting slate last night. I only watched the Detroit-Toronto game. Big surprise Detroit didn't look very good again. We'll talk about them a little bit later on the show. Toronto also on the slate tonight. There are some teams on back-to-backs, so that means late information. But really interesting slate ahead of us here tonight because there are some lopsided matchups. Like we have Toronto at home to Montreal. We have the Kings at home to Columbus. There aren't. I guess you could say Toronto's like probably should be at the top, like near the top of the priority list. But I don't know if there's like even some of the chalk, like chalk Boston, chalk Nashville, like those things. Like I'm not sure.
The Islanders again.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. So kind of excited to go through these 9 games because I do think that it makes the slate a little bit more wide open than it seems.
Yeah, and the Sabres look good in the first period. They beat the shit out of the Rangers the other night. Lavalette needs to stop being bored. I don't know what he's doing. He's creating 3 problems, trying to solve 1, I think, is what's going on. Just stop overcomplicating it. Sit Ryan Lindgren. Put Schneider back with Trouba. And let's call it a day. But yeah, I think the Sabres are back until they go on like a 6-game losing streak and they score like 4 goals in those 6 games. But like, who knows? I do like this slate because, well, right now I like this slate because I don't really like the chalk spots. But when the chalk nukes at like 7:38 p.m. Eastern, I'll just go, watch Harry Potter. Where I'm on the Prisoner of Azkaban in my rewatch for the 97th time. So I'll go watch the Prisoner of Azkaban and I'll go live my life. Maybe I'll play some Mario Kart. I don't know how you guys pronounce it, but let's get into the slate. Before we do, just wanted to extend a warm thank you to all of you. We really do appreciate your support. You guys rock, man. Like, we've talked about it a bunch, especially when we got switched to the affiliate program last January. We weren't really sure how it was going to go. We're here more now than we were then, so it's all because of you guys. Maybe you guys just love the beards. I don't know. Like, we do have the best beards in the industry. Many people are saying this. If you're not a premium member and you do want to sign up, you can click the link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. It'll get you 15% off your first week or month. We did have someone sign up for a core all-access avatar today. Thank you to whoever that was. That's all Sims access for every sport. My wife says she only watches for the beards. Click Party's got to grow his beard. Yeah. It's science. 60% of the time it works every time. But let's get into this slate. Let's start off with our favorite team, the Boston Bruins. The Ottawa Senators with a 2.8 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.2 total. We are a little confused on the Senators lines here because in practice yesterday, they practiced Tkachuk, Norris, Grieg, then Batherson, Pinto, Giroux. And the third line was the same. Stützle was out because he got hit in the face with a puck, but the coach said he's going to play. Then the coach said Pinto's probably going to play. Then why would they practice Norris on the top line if they don't expect to play him there? So my best guess is going to be Tkachuk, Norris, Grieg, and then And then Pinto was a placeholder for Stützle, so it's going to be Batherson, Stützle, Giroux, and then Pinto is going to move down to the third line. That's my educated guess. Quick Party is our in-house Senators fan. He'll confirm or deny these allegations, but that is my guess. Stu might not play. Depends on the swelling, apparently. Yeah, yesterday he said he's going to play, but now today he had a quote that said, we have a couple lineups. Like, coach talk sucks. We don't really know the Sens lines. If Stu doesn't play, Norris will definitely be on the top line. I'm not running out to play the Senators here tonight. I thought their total was a little bit disrespectful from Vegas. They have a lower total than the Blues, which is just a slap in the face. Boston takes a ton of penalties, and Ottawa's power play has been running hot. They do have generally a good power play. Their shooting percentage is outrageous right now, but you got to ride those waves because Boston takes, I think it's the most or the second most penalties in the league. So if I'm going to attack Ottawa, and luckily this is the first game locking, but if I don't really know the lines, obviously I want Tkachuk in there, and then I'll probably just put some power play guys around them. I'm pretty sure Norris is going to be with him on the top line, so I think I'd do like Norris, Tkachuk, and then build around that for power play. I don't think I'm going to get to the Sens in single entry. They are on my list. The list is pretty long on this slate. There is a lot of spots that I like. I do think if you're building 20, a Sens power play stack would definitely find my way in there. We'll just have to wait and see on definitive lines before I can give you some, before I know what I would want to do from 5-on-5 stacking. So without knowing that, it's a power play stack. The Boston side is a little bit more interesting. Zacha, Pastrnak, Tyler Johnson, 14,800. 6.4% projected ownership, or top two stack, 12.5% projected ownership. They're super cheap because of Tyler Johnson. He was min priced the other night. If I'm going to play the Bruins and if I'm going to play Pastrnak, it's when on this roster, it's when Zacha's in the center with Pastrnak. You can do whatever you want with Tyler Johnson. I don't mind Zacha Pastrnak 2-man here tonight. It will be a little bit chalky. But Pastrnak one-off always in play. He creates well with Pavel Zacha. That is where I go on the Boston side. I don't particularly love the depth of Boston. I don't want to play Lindholm, Marchand, Brazeau. If I'm power play stacking some super expensive, like Coyle Kepke, or however you pronounce it, or Courtois, is fine. But there's other super cheap spots that I prefer. So it would be Boston one for me and some sort of Ottawa power play stack.
Yeah, the Ottawa side is kind of interesting to me, just because, as you mentioned, all the penalties that Boston does take. They're at 4.4 times shorthanded per game this season. No other team is above 4. They're taking, it's 1.3 more penalties per game than the league average, and it's not like they have the penalty kill of the Chara Bergeron heyday, right? By shots against per 60 on the PK, they're fringe top 10, which is good, but it's not elite. They're not like Carolina, Vancouver, or anything like that. And because of that, they've given up 16 power play goals against in 15 games. That's why I agree with you. There should be some interest in Ottawa. Their power play is running hot. Top unit shooting nearly 29%. Honestly, half that would be probably around a normal level. So that's a little bit of a concern. But, when they are converting this well and Boston's just taking so many penalties, I do think the Ottawa power play guys, that's where I go with the Sens. Because we don't know what the even strength line combinations are going to be until warmups hit, I would definitely just focus on the power play guys. I assume if Stützle's out that Pinto would take his place, if Stützle's out and Pinto's in on the power play. That's just kind of a guess. I do like Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris as a 2-man. Throw Grieg in there because Grieg's so cheap. Like, I have no issues with anything like that for the Sens tonight, just because it is a really, really good power play spot for them. On the Boston side, I agree with you on Pasternak, Zacha. We mentioned it on the show on Thursday. It was, I forget what the price was. I think it was 15,100. It was like, how often are you going to get a David Pasternak line that's 15,100? Like, it feels yeah, now they're cheap. Now it's 14,800 on DK. And they're not coming in with that much ownership, 8.2% ownership on the top line, 5.3% top two stack. I would be tempted, honestly, to take out Tyler Johnson and just put in Brad Marchand. Marchand plays on the power play with Pasternak. Marchand's been shooting the puck quite a bit this year, like more than he has for a few years now. That helps, like, it at least puts the DK shot bonus in realistic range for him. And Ottawa's penalty kill, not good. Sixth most shots against per 60 so far this season. Sixth most actual shots against, seventh most goals against per 60. For all the penalties that Boston does take, they also draw a ton of power plays as well. So far this season, they're at 4.1 power play opportunities per game. It's like 0.6 more power play opportunities per game than the next closest team. Like, they are drawing a ton of power plays. So I do think, like, taking Johnson out and putting in Marchand or something like that is a very fine stack. And they're not, that combination is not super expensive tonight. Zacha's all the way down to 3,400. Marchand's only 5,100. So Pasternak's only 8,600. Like, Pasternak, there are going to be times where he's going to be in the high nines on DraftKings, like when he's really rolling. I really do like the Boston side here. And again, I would probably take out Johnson and put in one of the power play guys. Coyle's fine. I would probably lean to Marchand, though.
Yeah. You said it. Like, Pasternak is going to be in the high nines at times this season. If that line starts rolling, you'll see Zacha in the mid fives as well. So it's just like, this is the time. Montreal Canadiens, let's not forget that. 2.7 total. Heading into Toronto, the Leafs suck, but they have a 3.8 total. Matthews is on IR. I'll shed a tear about that later. They played last night. They beat the Wing 3-1. Neither side looked great. Like, there was 33 shots on goal combined with like 4 minutes left. It was not a game. Not a good game, anyway. It was a game. It wasn't a good one. But Leafs back at it tonight. Marner, Domi, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, Pacioretty. They're super cheap. The issue is, like, over like 2 of every 5 lineups is going to have some sort of Leaf stack here tonight. Now, they do have the highest total on the slate. It is back-to-back, and Montreal's coming to town, so it's an elite 5-on-5 matchup, and it's an elite power play matchup. The Leafs scored 2 power play goals yesterday and got an empty net goal into Dookie Johnson at 5-on-5. This is another spot where, if the Montreal takes 4 or 5 penalties, it could be a long night for them. I would lean to some sort of power play stack just because the ownership is so high at these 5-on-5 lines. So if you do Tavares, Nylander, Marner, right, it's a little bit more expensive. And yes, all 3 of those players may come in over 20%. But that does not mean that 3-man combination is going to be over 20%. I would imagine it will be under 10%. So if you want to get unique in a high ownership game, you just power play stack. You know what I mean? Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Nyes, depending on your price tolerance. You know what I mean? You can't fit Marner, put Nyes, use Riley. Should be OEL, but beggars can't be choosers. So that's how I would attack Toronto, because this is a great matchup, 5-on-5 and on the power play. I can't keep in the back of my head. I have no stats to back this up, but every time since we started doing shows that Montreal goes into Toronto, it's always a close game. I can't get that out of the back of my head, but I'm sure, Gallagher is going to take some stupid penalty, like a major, and they'll score 3 goals on the power play. But I do really, really like the Toronto power play. Montreal on the flip side is interesting too, because that top line is fully correlated 16,400, 4.7% top two stack, 2.9% projected ownership. Without Matthews, that top line takes a massive hit defensively, and it's not really a shock. Going from Matthews to Domi, it's like doing a swanton bomb off a 26-foot ladder. It's going to hurt. I kind of like Montreal here. Now, I'm not prioritizing them by any means. They have a 2.7 total, one of the lowest on the slate. But Toronto does not have a good penalty kill. They take a fair share of penalties, and there's no Matthews. So at 5-on-5, you're going up against a Domi line instead of a Matthews line. I don't mind Montreal 1 here. Obviously, I prefer Toronto, and it's not super close, but for 16-4, if you're building 20 to 150 lineups, I think Montreal 1 is a nice little sneaky option here tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned, I mean, not that it's a surprise that it's a drop-off when you go from Matthews to Domi, but what surprised me was they've kept sending out that top line against other top lines. Like Domi
cooked, man.
Yeah, Domi and Marner are going to go out against the Suzuki line. I think last night Domi was out for, it was like 67% of Dylan Larkin's 5-on-5 ice time. So that Domi's like, listen, I know the Habs are not a good team. Domi sucks defensively. Like
one of the worst in the league.
That's why he's kind of bounced around from team to team to team for like a decade now, including Montreal. Marner's pretty good defensively. Is certainly starting to come into his own. But I think it would be a league average at best defensive line from Toronto. And as you mentioned, that Montreal top line perfectly correlated on the power play, 16,400, 2.9% ownership, 4.7% top two stack. And this line of with Montreal with Doc there is a lot better defensively than it is with Slafkovsky there. I mean, if you wanted to go back to Doc's first year a couple of years ago, they were about league average by expected goals against, which like league average on this Montreal current iteration of this roster is like would be an absolute miracle. And it's been kind of the same so far this season. 2.7 expected goals against per 60, 2.6 actual goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. Those are about league average numbers. This Montreal top line has been about league average defensively, which, again, on this team this season is an absolute miracle. I kind of don't mind the Montreal top line here. I think that like I would take their side to be able to get the run against a Max Domi centered line. That's just kind of the way that I look at it. Now, on the flip side, I really, really like Nylander, Tavares, and Pacioretty here. When you're going to be sent out against the second and third lines from this Montreal team, you're going to have a pretty good night, I imagine. And the Toronto second line hasn't had a big sample. It's like 65 minutes, but they've been really, really good so far. 4.2 expected goals, 4.9 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Tavares looks like he did a couple years ago. Like could get to 40 goals this year. Nylander's been in the doghouse at times, but that happens with a Craig Berube coach team. Like if you want to do like a Nylander, Tavares, Marner stack or something like that, 20K is expensive, but it's not extreme. And it is a good power play matchup for him. And the power plays come a lot. What is it? 5 power play goals in the last 2 games or something like that?
They need to get slapdick Matthews off the power play for them.
Exactly. And Montreal is tied for 8th for most times shorthanded per game this season. I agree with you. I think it's a Toronto power play stack of some sort that I like best in this game. I would include, no matter what kind of Toronto power play stack I make, I would absolutely include Nylander. I think he's the guy that would probably be a must no matter what the iteration. But I wouldn't overlook Montreal 1 here. It is a significant downgrade defensively going from Austin Matthews to Max Domi. And this Montreal top line is a lot better both ways with Doc there over Slafkovsky. I'll also mention, if you are paying up elsewhere on the slate, I'm looking at you, Colorado, the Toronto third line. Robertson and Holmberg and Bobby McMahon, like we know Robertson can score. We know McMahon can score. Those guys are fairly cheap. McMahon's 3,300, Robertson's min price. It's a fairly cheap 2-man stack that you can stuff in. Montreal's bottom 6 is still terrible. Their depth defensemen are still terrible. I think it's one of those third lines that I would, use 2 out of the 3 guys if you are paying up for an expensive Colorado or something like that.
Yeah. New York Rangers with a 3.6 total heading into Detroit. The Wings have a 2.9. Like we just mentioned, the Wings lost 3-1 to Toronto last night. They are at home to the Rangers here tonight. Ville Husso, min price in net for the Wings. He has been atrocious this season. But you know what else is atrocious right now? The Rangers lines. I just flip-flop Mika and Trocheck, and we'll just go back to how it is, and we'll call it a day. But Lavalette he's like a bad parent. He just is trying to fix one problem, and he creates more. Panarin, Zibanejad, and Lafreniere. Panarin and Zibanejad have not worked ever. It will never work. For whatever reason, Panarin likes to float around into the zone, and so does Mika. Shocker that it never works. I guess they're going to be relying on Lafreniere there. Trocheck, Kreider, Riley Smith, I think is an interesting line at 15-1. This is another game where I'd focus on the power play guys. I wish the lines were normal, but this is a really good power play spot for the Rangers. I would you definitely want to get Panarin in, but I prefer that second line as a stack, like Trocheck, Kreider, Riley Smith. That's where I go 5-on-5, but I prefer power play stacking, and I want Panarin in there. I'm fine playing Panarin, Zibanejad, Lafreniere just because you're getting 2 guys on the top power play unit, but at 19.7, there's other lines in that price range that I like. So I would defer to New York Rangers 2 there, Trocheck, Kreider, Smith. They're in the better 5-on-5 matchup. Not that it's like a huge deal.
I will say it doesn't matter against Detroit.
I will say Larkin, DeBrincat, Kane in their small sample have been pretty good defensively, but that is just some small sample noise. Cliffy was talking about cheap third lines that he likes. I do like Phillip, Hedl, Cooley, and Kako. If you need a cheap 2-man, that's where I would go. On the wing side, I'm fine with that top line in MME if you're going to get a little bit in 20 to 150 max. Although the $20 is 105 max tonight, so 20 to 105 max. I don't love them, but we just saw Cliffy spelled it out perfectly in the Buffalo game. If Igor has a .930 save percentage, they're going to do nothing. But the other night he gave up 5 goals on 17 shots. That's sometimes what happens. So I'm fine with a little bit of Detroit 1 and MME for that reason, but I much prefer the Rangers power play here.
Yeah, I think if you want to avoid the super chalk Toronto, I think this Detroit top line is one of the top lines that you can use. I'm not worried about any of the 5. Honestly, I'm not worried about any of the matchups anywhere in this game at all. I'm honestly not Zibanejad replacing Trocheck is going to make that line a little bit worse defensively. The Rangers, we've talked about the problems that the defense core has had. Lindgren just does not help out Adam Fox at all. Keandre Miller and Jacob Trouba are just a very bad defense pair. I like Miller a lot as a player, and Trouba's actually playing well with Schneider earlier in the season, but they've been bad together for quite a while. I'm not worried about the 5-on-5 matchups on either side. I'm not worried about the power play matchups on either side. Ville Husso is starting, and he had that one bad game to start the season and then got sent to the AHL. He's been good in the AHL, but while you were talking, I was just looking, and there are 37 goalies with at least 70 starts since the start of the 22-23 season, and he's 35th out of 37 by save percentage. Like, this guy has not been good since he left St. Louis. And the Detroit penalty kill on top of that, not good at all. And we know how good this Rangers power play is. I really do like the Rangers side here more than the Detroit side. It's not a surprise. The Rangers have the bigger total, but I would probably go to the Zibanejad, Panarin, Lafreniere line for this reason. Is like, I know what you're saying about Zibanejad and Panarin. I think with Lafreniere at this stage in his career, him and Panarin are good enough to carry just about any center, is kind of the way that I look at it. And you get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play unit. Again, it's a great power play matchup. Detroit's penalty kill has not been good. 5th most shot attempts against per minute on the PK this season. 4th most shots against. 3rd most goals against. And this Rangers power play is one of the best in the league. So I really do like the Rangers power play guys. I guess if you want to take Lafreniere off and put on like Chris Kreider or something like that, you can do that to make it more of a power play stack. I would still be tempted to just kind of leave Lafreniere on there. I think you can just kind of straight up just power play stack the Rangers if you want as well. I think that's definitely in play. I do like the Rangers side a lot better. I think there should be some interest in Toronto one, or Detroit one, if you want to pivot away from the chalk Toronto, chalk Nashville type situations. But yeah, it's the Rangers side at even strength. Like I said, I think Panarin and Lafreniere can carry Zibanejad a little bit, but it's really the power play guys of the Rangers that I have the most interest in this game. This is a really good matchup for them.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like, Zibanejad needs carrying no matter who he's playing with now. Anyway, Washington Capitals with a 3.1 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues fell off the bus and somehow have a 3 total. I'm not 100% sure why. Like, this Washington team has been good. I know they lost yesterday, and they're back-to-back on the road, so I guess that makes sense. But, like, I don't know, man. Like, this Washington team has been good. The Blues did put together Kyrou, Buchnevich, and Shen. 15,600, 7.4% top 2 stack, 11% projected ownership. Like, I don't know if I want to play double-digit owned Blues on a 11-game slate without, or a 9-game slate without Rob Thomas in between them. You know what I mean? Like, if this was Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich, yeah, we're full sending. But, like, Braden Shen is not Robert Thomas. So, like, if you're making some mid-range lines, yeah, they're fine. But, like, I just don't love the matchup. I don't love the ownership. The line's fine, like, but they're going to be pretty awful defensively. If Thomas was there, at least stabilize it a little bit defensively. Not a huge fan of St. Louis 1. If they were like 4%, yeah, double digits, I'm going to look elsewhere in single entry. You want to play them, the totals there. The best players are together. That's about as good as a positive I can get. I kind of like the Washington side a little bit more. The Wilson McMichael Dubois line is $400 cheaper than St. Louis one. They have way less of a top 2 stack though, 1.9%, but they're only coming with 0.5% ownership. The Blues aren't a very good defensive team. There's no surprise there. The Capitals are one of the best teams off the rush, specifically Connor McMichael. And if the Blues are going to give up all these odd man rushes, I kind of have interest in that Washington second line here tonight. Now, they're kind of in the same boat for me as St. Louis one. I'm not going to prioritize them. But if I was making 20 to 100 lineups, I would probably have more of that Washington second line than the St. Louis top line. Just me. You can do your own thing, but that's where I'm at on this game.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on St. Louis here because, don't get me wrong, this isn't a good team or anything. But Kyrou, Buchnevich, and Shen, I think, is probably the best offensive line that they can put together until Robert Thomas is healthy, right? Kyrou and Buchnevich, they've only played 105 minutes together this season, but 4.1 goals per 60 minutes, 62 shot attempts per 60. Like, they've been high paced, they've been scoring. This line is perfectly correlated on the power play, but that's the one thing that worries me about this game, is that it's not a very good. I mean, not that St. Louis's power. I think I'm remembering right that they haven't scored on the power play since Robert Thomas got hurt. Which I don't think it's a big surprise. They are perfectly correlated on the power play. Like, Washington, a lot of Washington's success this year has been two reasons. One, the penalty kill has been pretty good. Goals against per minute on the PK, 6th fewest in the league, and they're just not giving up a lot of power play goals because of it. The other is they've just been outscoring the opposition. Like, this is a team that struggled to score last season. That has not been the case. And it's not just that they're riding, super hot shooting percentages or anything like that. As a team, the Capitals are second in the league behind only Carolina by expected goals 4 per 60. But their expected goals against is more towards like the middle of the league. Like, I think this is a good 5-on-5 matchup for Buchnevich, Kyrou, and Shen, especially where Washington is the road back-to-back. And the other thing that I think about is, let's say St. Louis does get to like 4 goals or something like that here tonight. Seems like a pretty good bet that the top line figures in heavily. Like, it's kind of like that Pittsburgh Penguins problem, right? It's like, if the Penguins get 4 or 5 goals, it's probably because the stacked top line got involved. It's kind of the same thing with St. Louis, only they're like $5,000 cheaper. That's the other thing that's kind of gnawing out at me here, is they're only $15,600. Like, they're cheaper than any of the Toronto lines, and they're coming in with less ownership. They're cheaper than the Ottawa lines that we talked about earlier. They're cheaper than Montreal. They're cheaper than Detroit. They're cheaper than New Jersey. Like, and you got to think, if they pay off that 3.0 goal total, that the first line has – the first line figures heavily into it. That's why, like, I kind of do have interest in St. Louis here. I just think it's a really, really good price for a perfectly correlated line that's at home against an average 5-on-5 team. What worries me is that St. Louis's power play has been bad and Washington's penalty kill has been good. That's the one thing that's honestly, if the St. Louis power play was even like close to average right now, I would probably be playing them tonight. It's the one thing that's really holding me back, but I am considering the Blues top line here. I just think the price is just right, and especially considering they're probably all going to play like 18 to 21 minutes or something like that. It's tough for me to pass up, but I do like St. Louis one, at least a 5-on-5 here. On the Washington side, McMichael, Dubois, Wilson, certainly perfectly fine to play here. The top line, perfectly fine to play here. I would probably lean Ovechkin, Strome, Protas. The only reason is I just keep thinking of the empty net situations. It's like, if Washington's up 3-2 with 2.5 minutes left, Ovechkin's going to play the final 2.5 minutes of the game because they're trying to feed him as empty net goals. That's why I do like Ovechkin, Strome, Protas here. They're at 3.8 expected goals per 60 this season. They've been generating a lot. I think both Washington lines are fine. I'm really considering St. Louis here. And like I said, the only thing that's really holding me back is that Washington's penalty kill has been pretty good, while St. Louis's power play has been pretty bad. Yeah.
The other thing holding me back is Braden Shen sucks. Like, he's good for DFS. And that's what you need. But like, I just worry that they're not going to be able to control play. But,
Well, yeah, but it's also, it's a price thing too, right? He's only 4,200.
That's true. Chalk Blues, baby. New Jersey Devils with a 3.2 total heading into Long Island. That sucks. The Islanders have a 2.8 total. Here we go with Chalk Islanders yet again. I will say I'd rather play the Blues than the Islanders here for sure. And the Islanders top line is 14,300 with 11.6% projected ownership. So for a couple $100 more, I think it's $800 more, you can play the Blues at some more ownership. I would prefer to play the Blues. Like, yes, I know they've had good games back to back since they've been put together, but I don't particularly love this line. You want to one-off Bo Horvat, that's fine. This isn't the best matchup. Sorry, I had to take a little sip of water there. The Devils are a good defensive team. They have a very good penalty kill. There's Blues are more expensive. I'd rather play them. The Vancouver top line 12-9. I'd rather play them. There's lines more expensive. There's lines less expensive that I would rather play in that spot than play chalk Islanders 1 here. I would go back to Islanders 2 if you want to go back there. They're $200 cheaper, 7.5% projected ownership. Nelson, Palmieri, Sipelkoff. But again, like they have a 2.8 home total. It's the lowest on the board. Only Ottawa, Utah, and Columbus and Montreal have lower totals, and they're all on the road. So, like, I don't really love the Islanders here. I prefer the Devil side. It would be Hughes, Bratt, Palat for me. I don't particularly love them here. This is more of an MME game for me on the Devil side. The more lineups I'm making, the more likely I'll get to the Devils top 6. But I am making a conscious effort to fade the Islanders top line here.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in the Islanders. Like, I think they're fine because they're, like you said, I would rather play St. Louis as well. They're kind of in that St. Louis situation where the top guys are going to play a lot, like especially that Horvat line. The Horvat line's probably all going to play 18 to 21 minutes, something in that range, right? Like that's why you might want to play them. You know, Horvat has had decent numbers without Matt Barzal this season. 63 shot attempts, 4.5 goals per 60, but they're shooting 13%. It's a little bit high. What worries me more than anything is like this is a kind of like St. Louis. This is a pretty bad power play spot for the Islanders. You know, the New Jersey penalty kill has generally been very good this season. Second fewest shot attempts per minute on the PK, second fewest shots against on the PK, top 10 by goals against. New Jersey doesn't take a ton of penalties. They're below average in that regard as well. Like the Islanders might get like a couple power plays against a top 10, maybe a top 5 penalty kill, depending on which metrics you look at. So, you know, especially where, you know, both the Islanders first and second lines are similarly in play at similar prices, similar top 2 stacks and all that. I would probably lean Horvat, lean Pajot, just because I'm a time on ice whore, and you know, give me the 18 to 21 minutes that I'll probably get from them. But I think in that price range again, I would probably rather play St. Louis. On the New Jersey side, I do have a little bit of interest in Hughes, Bratt, and Palat. Jack Hughes got off to a slow start this season. He started to come around basically over the last few weeks. That lines up to 3.2 expected goals per 60. So far this season. You know, the line is fairly cheap. Hughes, Bratt, and Palat, 17,200, 6.9% top 2 stack, 5.6% ownership. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. While the Islanders don't take a ton of penalties, they are giving up a lot of power play goals against. Like the Islanders have had one of the worst penalty kills in the league. They've allowed 10 power play goals against in 14 games, despite only giving up 30 power plays. So 10, you know, they've only killed off 20 out of 30 penalties they've taken. So, you know, you do get a good power play, decent power play correlation, 2 out of the 3. They're a decent price at 17,200. I have some interest. New Jersey 2 is my favorite line in this game. They're one of the lines that I would consider playing here. Overall, I don't have a ton of interest in this game. For some reason, it just screams like 3-1 either way or something like that. But yeah, if anything, Hughes, Bratt, and Palat is what's catching my eye, because especially where Hughes is really starting to look like his old self, let's say.
Yeah, I agree. The Utah Soakers with a 2.8 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 3.3 total. Last game, the Utah reunited Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayton. I haven't seen anything to suggest that they're switching that up. The second line was Genther, Cooley, Maselli, then Krause, Bukestacker, Foote. Nashville's still rolling with Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Marchessault, Nyquist, and Sissons is out. So it could be Evangelista, it could be Novak.
Sissons, I think they said officially game time, and he was at morning skate today, so I think he's going to play.
Yeah, I mean, that line is not, as I disconnect and reconnect, that line is not super important to me. Nashville one is 18,300, 15.8% top two stack, 14% projected ownership. I'm kind of at a crossroads at what to do with that, because on the one hand, if it is Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup. And we've talked about it since last season that Stamkos really just hasn't been great at 5-on-5 no matter who he's playing with. However, this is a very, very good power play spot. And 18,300 for this iteration of this line is cheap. So
I mean, just think back to last season. There, like, replace Stamkos with Gus Nyquist, and there was times this line with Gus Nyquist was over 20K.
Yeah, exactly. Stamkos is in the mid fives. Most of the season last year, he was in the mid sevens. O'Reilly's under 5K. Most of the season last year, he was like 6,300. Like, I'm leaning towards playing them just because they're fully correlated. Very good power play spot. It's not the best 5-on-5 matchup. If it was anyone but Keller, Schmaltz, Hayden, if this was Keller, Genther, and Cooley, I'd say yeah, let's fucking go. That top line for Utah has been good, and they've been good for a couple seasons. Hayden was hurt last year; their numbers weren't great, but he was very clearly hurt. In a nutshell, I do really like Nashville one because of the power play correlation. I don't particularly love the line 5-on-5. But, anytime you can get a Forsberg line under 19K in a great power play matchup, I'm interested. On the flip side, that gives me interest in the Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton line. They're fully correlated. Nashville's been struggling on the penalty kill. They're 16,000. They have 1.4% projected ownership. Now, I'm not saying let's go Soakers, but like, this is a line that I have always had interest in. They would definitely be in my MME mix tonight. I wouldn't even hate like a one-off Keller and single entry, something like that. If you're getting really spicy in single entry, I think you can play them. I prefer Nashville one here, but let's not discount Utah one here.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that Nashville's penalty kill, it's kind of two things. It's one, like, they're not amongst the elite. Like, they're not up, like, for shots against the stuff. They're not up with, like, the Devils and the Hurricanes and all that. But a lot of it is save percentage driven so far. Like, their penalty kill save percentage sitting at 934, which is absolutely bananas considering almost 5 weeks into, or we are 5 weeks into the season if you count the European games. The problem is, I agree with you. I kind of like the Nashville side a little bit better. The big reason is because Nashville's power play has been legitimately great. They're at 12.8 goals per 60, which, like, if they do that for a full season, they're in like Tampa Bay, New York Rangers territory. And the thing is like, they're not doing it the way Ottawa's doing it by shooting 29%. They're doing it by shooting 19%, right? Like, it's still a little high, but it's a lot more reasonable. Like, they have legitimately been one of the best power plays in the league. And you talk about all the penalties that Utah takes. They're at 3.4 times shorthanded per game. That's tied with Montreal for 8th most in the league. Like, if Nashville gets like 4 power plays here tonight, they can easily go 2 for 4 against this Utah PK. So I agree with you. I really do like the top line. 18,300, 14% ownership, 15.8% top 2 stack. If you want to take out Stamkos, put in Marchessault to get a bit different, I think that's fine. But I would just roll with Nashville one here. It is a really, really good power play spot for them. And it's one of those things, like, they're cheap enough where they don't have to go absolutely bananas, right? Like, Stamkos gets a power play goal. Ryan O'Reilly gets an empty netter. Philip Forsberg has 2 assists and a shot bonus, like something like that. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need to go crazy to really pay off here tonight. So I do like Nashville 1 quite a bit. On the Utah side, one thing I do like Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayden in a nutshell. I do, because I think this is a pretty good 5-on-5 matchup for them. I'm not worried about any of the 5-on-5 matchups from the Nashville side, especially with the way that Nashville, like, I don't know if you saw this, but right after we started the show, Dante Fabro got put on waivers.
Awesome.
Yeah. And Brady Shea and Roman Yossi, they got broken up last game, but that defense pair has been atrocious defensively. And I was watching the game. Was it Thursday night they were playing? They're giving up, I think it's the 4th most rush chances against in the league. And I saw Jack Hahn talk about it. He was a former Toronto Maple Leafs coach. He says they're just a slow team. Like, Nashville is just a slow team. They're at the bottom of the league for, if you look at average team speed, like for legitimate skating. So they're very susceptible to what I would say faster teams, and that Utah top line plays very fast. I do like Utah 1 here. They are one of those mid-priced lines that I would consider here tonight. But, you know, all things considered, I would probably just rather pay up an extra $2,000 and go play Nashville 1.
Yeah, I agree there. Let's get to a spicy meatball of a game. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.4 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3.1. Avs going McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen. Middle stack, Kiwi, Ronto, O'Connor. Then whatever. Carolina, status quo. Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic, Netchis, Kotkaniemi, Robinson, Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook. Start on the Colorado side. The only line of note for me is the Colorado top line. They are 23,200. They will avoid the Stahl line. They'll see him sometimes. These guys play so many minutes. This isn't the best matchup. It's, in fact, one of the worst. They have a 28.7% top 2 stack, nevertheless, and 11.7% projected ownership. 23,200 is a tough pill to swallow in this matchup. I know they're home. They're matchup proof. I'll never say no to McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen line. This is about as tough as it gets for them, even going into the Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic matchup, because that line is up above 70 minutes, which, like, when you're talking like small samples, it's still a little bit small. You really want to see about 100 minutes, but this line has been incredible at both ends of the ice together. Roslovic, like, the Hurricanes fans are ready to, you know, punt Roslovic to England after the first few games of the season. He's really turned it around. He's looked great up there. So single entry, I'm probably out on Colorado 1 here. I'll never say no to them. You want to play them, go do it. They're matchup proof. I'd rather go elsewhere here tonight. There's just a lot of lines that are cheaper that I like better. I prefer Carolina 1 here. No one's playing Carolina. Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic, 19,200, 6% top 2 stack, 1.2% projected ownership. Yes, they're going to run into McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen. But they're also going to be running into Georgiev. And Georgiev really has not been great. They have issues defensively. This, like I said, that Carolina line in a small-ish sample, it's getting larger, has been excellent on both ends of the ice. I think it's like 75 minutes. They have expected goals above 4. I like going back to Carolina 1 here. You want to go Netchis 1 off, I think that's fine. I think even as a filler, like Stahl, Jarvis, Martinook at 11-1 against this depth of Colorado is interesting to me, especially if you're like power play stacking the Leafs or power play stacking the Rangers, something like that. You go like Stahl, Jarvis, or Martinook, Jarvis, something like that. Against this depth and this goalie, I'm interested in. Like, again, never going to say no to Colorado 1, but for me, this is a Carolina game.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Colorado side of things. Like, this isn't a situation where I'm running out to play them in single entry. They're, you know, obviously they're a very good line. They're going to play a lot of minutes. They're perfectly correlated. I think this is the worst possible matchup that Colorado can get. You know, Carolina's giving up the fewest shots against per minute so far this season. I don't think that's a bit of a surprise. They're giving up the second fewest goals against per minute so far this season. So, you know, it's not like this time last year where Carolina was playing very well and Antti Ranta was giving up like 5 goals on 10 shots, right? Like the goaltending has largely been fine. And when you're on a team this good defensively, you don't need much more than fine. So again, if you want to play Colorado, not going to say no. They can, dust just about anybody, but this isn't a particular spot where I'm clamoring to play them. I'm going to be honest. I'm not super high on Carolina here either. 19,200 is a lot to pay for, especially considering one of the guys is not on the top power play with him and is probably going to play 13 minutes. I get the Georgiev thing. He was terrible to start the season. I will say they gave him a couple games off, and he's only given up 4 goals on 52 shots since in the 2 games that he started since he came back. Like, Colorado's not been a bad defensive team this season. Like, it's been largely just the goaltending. Like, Colorado is basically in the middle of the league for expected goals against per 60. It's not like this is a bad defensive team with bad goaltending. This was a fine to good defensive team with bad goaltending, and the goaltending after a bad 2 weeks looks a lot better over the last few weeks. It's just the price that's killing me. It's 19,200, right? I would probably rather just go, like, would you rather play Carolina 1, not perfectly correlated going into Colorado, or New Rangers 1, not perfectly correlated going into Detroit, right? Like, I would rather just play the Rangers. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. I think there are one-offs that are fine. Natchez is a one-off. Jarvis is a one-off. Those types of things, I think they're fine. But considering where they are price-wise, there are just other lines I would rather go play. And if you're not going to give me the perfect correlation, I'll just go to the team that I think is in the better spot, and that's the Rangers.
Yeah, no, that argument makes sense. I mean, they're kind of priced in that range. I think another line that's a little bit cheaper in the next game is also interesting, and we'll talk about them right now. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2.6 total heading into Los Angeles. Our Kings, our frustrating Kings, have a 3.5 total. It is not the Columbus top line that I'm talking about. However, Monahan, Marchenko, Chinnikov at 17.6, fully correlated, 0.2% ownership. Is a little bit interesting, but this is a pretty brutal matchup. You get to a little bit there in single entry or in MME. Cool. Don't really have much else interest in Columbus. My interest is on the Los Angeles side. It would be that top line. Kopitar, Fiala, Kempe, 10.7% top 2 stack, 8% projected ownership. They're 18,400. Here's the thing. They will be going out against Monahan, Marchenko, Chinnikov a fair bit. And that line has been very good at 5-on-5 with the Werenski pairing. They are fully correlated, and the Columbus penalty kill sucks.
I will say, just to jump in for a sec, they've been using Kopitar less in top line matchups.
Yeah,
I looked over their last couple games, and he really did not go out all that much against JT Miller or Connor Bedard.
Yeah, so they do that from time to time. Different coach, but he's in the same organization. There's like 3-week stretches where Kopitar will hard match, and then there's 3-week stretches where they won't go out at all. So irregardless, I like them. I'd like them more if they're not going out against Monahan, Marchenko, Chinnikov. If they're going out against Fantilli, Sillinger, Pythia, or Danforth, Voronkov, Olivier. I do really like the Kings because of the power play correlation, very bad penalty kill. This is it kind of feels like, I don't want to say like a pivot off the Leafs because the Leafs are an elite 5-on-5 spot, but I don't know. Like, I do really like that line. I also like Laferriere, Byfield, Fogle at 11-1. Not the only one. They have a 2.5% top 2 stack, 10.8% projected ownership. No, Tyler, like, the reason we like the Kings is probably the same reason you should like Elvis. And we'll get to goalies at the end, but that just because we like a team doesn't mean we don't like the opposite goalie. It's not mutually exclusive, but we'll get to that at the end. I do like Laferriere, Byfield, Foegele. Like, I don't know. Warren Foegele just kind of needed to leave Edmonton. Holloway needed to leave Edmonton. Foegele needed to leave Edmonton. Broberg, et cetera, et cetera. Byfield has looked great. He's kind of more of a better actual hockey player than a DFS stud, but they're cheap enough where you can get, Laferriere's on the top power play unit. Fogel's been shooting. Byfield's look great. If you're going to power play stack another team, I would take like a two-man of Byfield, Foegele, Laferriere, Foegele, Byfield, Laferriere, something like that. But this is a Kings 1 game for me.
Yeah, no interest in Columbus. This is outside of Carolina. This is probably the worst 5-on-5 matchup in the league. And Columbus's power play just hasn't been that good besides. So it's not like they can really take advantage of it. Los Angeles penalty kill, that just looks shaky. And I will say, the Los Angeles penalty kill, their entire problem this season is related to goaltending. It hasn't been related to the team. Los Angeles is giving up the fewest shots per minute of any on the penalty kill of any team in the league. Like fewer than New Jersey, fewer than Carolina, so fewer than Washington. Like they've been great. It's just that until the last few games, their goalies were only saving like 75% of the PK shots. So no interest in Columbus. Los Angeles 1 is the line. I mean, I do have a lot of interest in Los Angeles 1. And they are one of those lines that I would probably rather play than Carolina here tonight. Because I don't think they're going to go out that much against Monahan. They're going to go out against the second and third lines from Columbus, and those lines have largely been getting run over. Fantilli, Sillinger, it's not a huge sample yet. It's only 50 minutes, but they're 3.2 expected goals against per 60. Like, Kopitar, Kempe, Fiala should be able to run them over. In the Columbus penalty kill, like, their PK hasn't been bad. Like, we'll just go that far. But they've also been getting 900 save percentage on the PK. They've had the opposite problem of the Kings, where their goalies are riding a little bit too hot on the penalty kill. I really do like Los Angeles 1 here. They are one of my favorite lines on the slate. I think this is a great matchup at 5-on-5. I think this is a great matchup on the power play. They're perfectly correlated. They're not that expensive at 18,400. I think this is one of those places you can pivot away from a chalky Toronto or something like that in the same price range. I agree with you on that Foegele line, though. Foegele, Byfield, Laferriere. They're coming in with a lot of ownership. I think that's kind of expected given the spot and given the price. 10.8% ownership, 2.5% top two stack. But, Byfield and Foegele have been really good together so far this season. They've controlled the chances. They're at 3.3 goals per 60. Depending on the game, they might skate 15 to 18 minutes, depending on power play opportunities and things like that. So I think they're perfectly fine as a filler stack, even at that high ownership, because, the lines that you would probably be putting them with, we'll get to Edmonton next, but like Edmonton, Rangers, like those types of things are going to be high owned anyway. So I don't care if my filler line's 10% or whatever, but it is Los Angeles 1 I like in this game, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I do really like the Kings, our Kings. We just got a new update with the proper Vancouver line, so thank you, Jacob. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.1 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3 total. Brock Besser is out. Vancouver going JT Miller, Connor Garland, P.S. Suter, Pettersson, DeBrusk, Hoglander, Sherwood, Bluger, Heinen still together. If you're interested in really, really cheap, if you're trying to jam in like Colorado with McCarr. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Skinner, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. Super much wow narrative street for Vasily Podkolzin back in Vancouver. For those of you who like to live on Narrative Street, I particularly don't like the neighborhood. But start on the Edmonton side here. McDavid, Hyman, Skinner, 20,700, 9.2% projected ownership, 1.2%. Or 9. I always do that. Same thing with the Flyers and Panthers. 9.2% top two stack percentage, 1.2% projected ownership. That's a little scary to me, especially without Brock Besser, because Miller and Besser have been nitrous for the last 2 seasons on both ends of the ice with Quinn Hughes. Like, Pius Suter moving up there is a drop-off. I like Pius Suter, but it's a drop-off. I think this is an interesting spot for the Oilers. It's not a very good PK spot. But again, like, the Oilers had the best power play in the league last year. They've struggled a fair bit so far this season, but like, they can absolutely just destroy anyone at any time. If you're going to give me 1.2% on a McDavid line, that will raise some eyebrows for me. So I'm not running out to play them, but at that ownership, I will definitely consider them. Don't have a ton of interest in Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. I prefer the McDavid line. The Vancouver side is where things get a little bit spicy because Miller, Garland, Suter is fully correlated at 12,900, 4.6% top 2 stack, 10.3% projected ownership. Again, I like Suter. I've always been a Garland guy since he was on the Coyotes. Miller, I think, with Pettersson, who knows, but I think Miller is their best center. Just a question if you want to eat that ownership, because yes, the team's a little bit different than last year, but last year Edmonton had a very, very good penalty kill. It's just they've struggled a bunch so far this season. I'm leaning towards playing this Miller, Garland, Suter line. And I think you just play the full line since they're fully correlated at 12.9. The Pettersson line is fine at 11,300, 5.6% projected ownership, especially with Hoglander there. Pettersson plays his best with Hoglander. Don't really love DeBrusk there. I would just find the 1,600 to go play Miller, Garland, Suter.
Yeah, Miller, Garland, Suter is like kind of where my attention is on the Vancouver side because, you know, we mention it basically every time we have Vancouver on the show, but they do send out the Quinn Hughes pairing a lot with the JT Miller line. It's like 60 to 70% of JT Miller's minutes at even strength will come with Quinn Hughes on the ice, and that's very important for this Vancouver team, or just in general. Quinn Hughes, top 5 defenseman in the league, but it would be Miller, Garland, Suter, like perfectly correlated at 12,900, even at 10%. Like we just talked about Los Angeles with their third line. One guy on one power play, one guy on another. And, you know, they're coming in at 10% ownership. And, you know, that line is perfectly correlated at home at 12,900 and same ownership level. So, like, I do have interest in Miller, Garland, Suter, you know, even at that ownership, because they do fit in with the Rangers. They do fit in, you know, with Nashville, with lines like that. So I do have interest in that line. Pettersson, DeBrusk, Hoglander, they are cheaper. If you need the savings, I think it's fine, but it's a pass for me. I want the perfectly correlated line. The Edmonton side is where things get a little bit more interesting for me. We don't really have a sample with Jeff Skinner on the top line. McDavid, Hyman, and Skinner probably going to see Quinn Hughes quite a bit. But honestly, McDavid and Hyman, like they're as matchup proof as it gets. Like it's like Colorado against Carolina. The difference is like, you know, Skinner's not on the power play. But if you want to replace Skinner with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, it's only an extra $300. McDavid, Hyman, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at times last year was a $25,000 plus line. Right now, they would be $21K on DraftKings. Like, that's why I'm really tempted here. Vancouver does have a good PK. Quinn Hughes has been really good defensively, especially with him and Miller on the ice together, that combination. But with almost no ownership on Edmonton, I'm like, how, like on a 9-game slate, how often would you get like a $20,000 to $21,000 McDavid line at 1% ownership? You know what I mean? Like that's what's really drawing me here. I do think the Draisaitl line is in a better matchup if you want to believe in Narrative Street. Him and Podkolzin have actually been good together this season. Haven't been able to finish, shooting under 4%, but they're at 3.3 expected goals per 60 together. But it's like the Green Goblin voice. Like I can just hear hear it in my head saying, "Play McDavid at 1%, you absolute idiot." They're in my mix. I would probably take out Skinner and put in RNH because I want the power play correlation, but it's Edmonton one that I'm really, really considering out of this game. But of course, a JT Miller line perfectly correlated at that price, perfectly fine.
Yeah, their penalty kill has been very good, Vancouver. But again, it's Kevin Lankinen in net, who I like, but he is not a full-time starter in this league, especially with Demko on the team. Demko's obviously hurt, but like, it makes me nervous when McDavid's that low owned. Let's talk a little bit about defensemen here. Top of the board, we have Makar, Yossi, Werenski, Hughes, Carlson, Bouchard. Don't particularly love the top here. Pretty brutal power play matchup for Makar. I think Yossi would be the guy for me. Yossi, Quinn Hughes in the top. Don't mind Dobson again just because he's going to play a ton of minutes. Like he's been the last 3 games have been 25, 30, 28. So I don't mind them in the top range. I don't know if I'm going to spend in the top range here tonight, but who are you liking up there?
Yeah, I have Dobson and Yossi at the top. Those are the two expensive defensemen that I would really consider here tonight. I would like if Noah Dobson can start blocking the shots. If he's going to be playing 30 minutes a game, do you think you can throw your body in front of a shot like every 10 minutes or so? Please?
Come on, man. It's much easier for us to say that sitting in these chairs.
It's true. In the mid-price range, like Colton Parayko, he's on the top power play unit now. I mean, I guess that's something. Morgan Riley, of course, at home against Montreal. Darnell Nurse, like he's been shooting the puck a lot, which is something.
Jacob Trouba of the West.
Yeah, but it's not something that he typically does. But he does have, I think it's like 2.7 shots per game or something like that. You add that with 2 blocks per game, there's a lot of peripheral value for Darnell Nurse. Not a great peripheral spot, but I don't mind him. Brant Clark, like you want to talk about peripherals. Brant Clark is at 2 shots and 2 blocks per game. And don't forget, he started the season playing like, under 16, 17 minutes at times. So he's been putting up peripherals, and it's a great spot for him at home at 5K. I really like Brant Clark here tonight. I think Moritz Cedar for Detroit is fine because there's nobody else to play on that blue line. Thomas Chabot, speaking of peripherals, he's been doing the job for Ottawa big time. He's at like 2.5 shots and over 2 blocks per game so far this season. It is a pretty good power play spot. I think you might want to play Sanderson, but Chabot is a lot cheaper here. There are cheap guys in play, of course. Jordan Spence, like every defenseman at home against Columbus, like Spence and Gavrikov and whatever, they're in play. Ryan Suter's going to get minutes. He's kind of like he's like the elder Mikey Anderson now. He's getting a ton of minutes, not doing a ton with them, but he is getting minutes. We had Clayton ask about Isaiah George in the Discord earlier. He's the defenseman that the Islanders called up. He played like 24 minutes in the last game. He only played 15 in the first game, like 23 and a half minutes in the last game. He's a legit prospect. Like I don't know if he's going to be like a high-end offensive guy, but in DFS, I think long-term, maybe he could be kind of like an Ivan Provorov where he can put up like 40 points and maybe like 2 shots and 2 blocks per game or something like that. But with all the injuries the Islanders have on the blue line, Romanov, Pelech, Riley, all out, it does seem like they kind of like George. I think he makes a lot of sense at his cheap price in what could be a game where he has to block a lot of shots again. Jacob Slavin under 4K, I think, is definitely playable. Jake McCabe for Toronto. I mean, the whole blue line is played, but he always projects well when he's at like that 3-ish K range. And I'll mention Jacob Chychrun is back tonight for Washington. Not a particularly great matchup, but he's 5,100. I think that's fine. But another cheap guy I don't mind is Mike Kesselring. He's been getting a few more minutes. Don't mind him. He can move the puck. But I think like in that super cheap range, I would probably go Isaiah George, Jordan Spence, Gavrikov, McCabe, maybe Hampus Lindholm from Boston.
Yeah, I agree there. Like if you need, like, I always get this question, you have any min price guys that you like? It would probably be Ole Mata. He doesn't do much with his minutes, but he has been playing since he got to Utah about 19, 20 minutes a night. So
they're $2,500 for a reason, right?
Yeah. It's like when people are asking, who's your favorite golfer in the 6K range? They're all going to have flaws, homie. So, yeah, but like he has been playing about 20 minutes a night, whether he does anything with them or just, cardio. Who knows? Goalies. Yay, goalies. It's Johnny Quick for the Rangers tonight, by the way, not Igor Shesterkin. That's interesting. If I'm spending up, which I don't think I will, it would probably be for Markstrom. I don't mind Logan Thompson at 7,900. In the mid-range, Binnington, even Stewie Skinner, I think, is okay without Besser. And spending down is a little bit interesting here tonight because you have Sorokin at 7,300 at home, which is an egregious pricing. Doesn't even matter what the odds are. I don't mind Linus Ullmark at 7,100. Montembeault at 6,900 if you really want to ride some lightning. And like Ville Husso's min price. It doesn't matter who the name is. If there's any goalie at 6,500, I just read Quick Party's comment and my brain just went completely blank. Good for you. That doesn't happen very often. But any goalie at min price you have to consider just because 6,500 opens up so much salary.
I do think there are a lot of playable cheap goalies here tonight. Like you mentioned, Husso 6,500. Like if you just want a cheap goalie to play, like just slam him in and then pray that he doesn't pull what he did in the first game of the season. Sam Montembeault
points at that price. I'd sign.
I mean, Sam Montembeault 6,900 against an Austin Matthews-less Toronto team. Like even if he gives up 3 goals on 35 shots, like it still wouldn't be a bad night for under 7K. Elvis Merzlikins against the Kings. The Kings definitely had trouble scoring at times at 5-on-5 this season. Connor Ingram on the road against Nashville. We know Nashville's been one of the worst 5-on-5 scoring teams this season. Eventually they're probably going to break out, but if Ingram can kind of hold down the fort on the penalty kill, I think that, he'd be fine. Like there are a lot of cheap, like Ilya Sorokin 7,300 at home.
Egregious pricing.
Right? You know what I mean? Like there are expensive goalies I do like tonight. Like I think Saros at home is fine. I think Markstrom on the road is fine. But to me, Kevin Lankinen at home is fine. But to me, it does seem like this is a night where I don't think you necessarily have to spend over 7,500 for your goalie on DK. There are a number of cheap options in play here.
Yeah. And if you're thinking, I'm going to spend up to get different, goalie ownership doesn't matter. The goalie points do. So whoever is the highest scoring goalie is going to be the best goalie. I'm interested to see Husso's ownership. I would imagine it's going to be double digits tonight just because he's so cheap. But again, if you have a guy you like, you play him. Who you like him for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go with a guy you slandered not even 10 minutes ago. The QB himself, Quentin Byfield.
I slandered Quentin Byfield?
Slandered. You said he was better in real life than a DFS player, which he is.
I'm very confused right now. I guess that is a DFS slander, but I love Quentin Byfield. Marry me. Sorry, Jessica. I'm going to go Brady Tkachuk. Because
I would love to see Ottawa go into Boston and just pump the Bruins to see what the next 48 hours of the news cycle would be like.
Oh, yeah. Not only that, give me the hate mail, boys. Yeah. Oh, I guess Jessica's watching. Great. Good. Great. Grand. Wonderful. I'm going to go call the divorce lawyer, and we will see you on Monday. No, I'm just kidding. We will see you on Monday, I believe, 5-game slate. Good luck.
I think we're on every day next week.
Every day next week. The Beards will be here. Thank you guys for tuning in. hit almost 500 viewers on a Saturday afternoon. That's loco to me, but good luck, everybody. Win some money. We'll see you on Monday.
Good luck tonight, everyone.